Good evening, everyone. It's so great to see a packed room this evening. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it, and the DCA extends to you a very warm welcome. This evening, we're going to hear from our constitutional officers and candidates for office, and we have fewer questions than we had Monday night. So it probably won't be as long an evening. Should you get thirsty, we have some cold water over here and facilities, restrooms here. The questions this evening. So the questions came in from you, from the public. None of the questions were made up by anybody at the DCA or our moderator. The questions came from the public. So the only changes that were made, and these are very minor, is that if it was a question that was almost identical to another that was asked, we just batch those together. And of course, any inappropriate questions that were written were not submitted to the moderator. Thank goodness we didn't have but a couple of those, so that's good. And just a quick plug for the DCA. We meet every third Thursday at 7 o'clock here in this building. We're all volunteers. There's a lot of campus here, a lot of facilities to take care of. It's all done, all of it's sustainable through fundraising dollars and volunteerism, and we can always use more volunteers. So please come and join us. We would love that. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Eddie Harrow, our moderator for the evening.
Thank you. Peppermints could get like chewing gum. Thank you all for being here. Talk over it. I got it, Stephen. Just signal me if I get too loud. Thank you, candidates, and I want to tell you that we really do appreciate you offering yourself for public service to our county. We're going to begin on our left with Blair Sibley, then Michael Hurd, Dave Bushey, John Farinholt, David Eberline, and Mae Burke, and we're going to give you, you have 4 minutes to introduce yourself and say whatever you would like to say within certain confines. And Blair, we're going to start with you. Now, I apologize. I try not to say people by their first names when we do something formal like this, so excuse me, Mr. Sibley, you may begin.
I've been Blair most of my life, so that's fine. I'm used to hearing that. I'm Blair Sibley. I'm candidate for sheriff. I was born and raised here in Middlesex County. I started out in public service when I was a young teen, volunteering with the fire departments, with Deltaville and with Waterview. From that point, once I was old enough, I ventured into law enforcement in 2001. From that point, I worked my way over to Middlesex Sheriff's Office in 2005, and in 2006, I was promoted to investigations. From 2006 to June to 2016, I was our lead investigator here in Middlesex County. At that point, I was responsible for and worked personally our murders, unattended deaths, drugs, larceny, robberies, special victims cases. I even led investigations with the federal agencies, federal agencies such as the DEA, the FBI, and the United States Secret Service. I'm currently a certified law enforcement officer, and I work part-time with the Matthews County Sheriff's Office to retain my certifications and to keep my skills sharp. I also work for a large construction company up in Northern Virginia, and I handle insurance investigations and their job profit margins. I know all the decisions I'm going to have to make may not always benefit me politically when it comes to sheriff, but however, I'm going to make sure that they're going to be fair and in the best interest of the citizens of Middlessex County. I pledge to make myself available and accessible to the community, as well as continuing to listen to people's concerns. There were three major concerns that were across the board from the lower end of the county all the way to the northern end of the county. And those three concerns were the visibility of the officers on the road, as well as concerns about times we have one deputy working at night. Another concern that the public has reached out to me about was actually the visibility of the sheriff, so that way they could express their concerns. When it comes to the visibility of officers, I feel like it's a pretty easy thing to address, because we can reassign management positions back to our roads so we get the proper road coverage that we need. When it comes to the sheriff, of course, we need to make ourselves available for the public to talk to us. The third thing, what was the most important thing to everybody that I've spoken to, has been drugs in the community. And the drugs in the community, that's a problem across the entire country, but we also have a problem here at home. So I'm going to use every resource available and aggressively combat the problems with the drugs here in our community. All the deputies are going to be able to be required to exhaust all leads for every call they respond to, and we're going to make sure we build a strong, respectful support system for our Commonwealth Attorney's Office. I want to thank everybody for coming out, thank the DCA for having us all, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Mr. Sibley. Mr. Hurd.
Hello. Well, I've been doing trial practice for 30 years, so I'm used to standing up and walking around. And I've done over 43 or so jury trials. So I thank all of you for coming here tonight, and it's been my honor and privilege to serve as your Commonwealth's attorney for the past 12 years. I am asking for a fourth term. I'm a Deltaville native. My family was raised in a house just across the street, and I live just down the street as well. I have attended Middlesex Public Schools, and then, like my father, Lynchburg College, and Mercer University for law school. And like I said, I've been an attorney for 30 years. I worked as an assistant Commonwealth's attorney in Danville for a number of years. And then I came home, literally home to Middlesex, just a house down the street. And I then worked for Mike Sobrick in Gloucester in private practice. And I realized the goal of having my own law practice here in Deltaville in what had been my grandfather's grocery store. But I had another goal also. Having worked as a prosecutor in Danville and also working in private practice here, I really wanted to become the Commonwealth's attorney here in my home county and serve my home citizens. And I'm very pleased with having accomplished that and continue in that capacity. I've served on numerous boards and civic associations, often in a leadership role as a president or vice president or just as a board member. And this job becomes important on day one, which is January 1st. There's no honeymoon. There's no one else to turn to in this office because it is a one-person Commonwealth Attorney office. It's very time-consuming. Someone could take shortcuts in this job, and you would never know. I prosecute misdemeanors, though not required to do so. That includes stalking, larcenies, DUIs, domestic violence cases. I want to be there for those victims, and I am. Some prosecutors do not prosecute those cases, but I do, because it's important for them, and it's important for me too. We have serious crimes here in Middlesex. We have homicides, drug dealings, child pornography cases, burglaries, embezzlements, and sexual assaults. This job requires dedication, empathy, commitment, and knowledge of what works and what does not. I have spent many nights, weekends, and holidays working as your Commonwealth's attorney. I meet with the law enforcement officers and with the victims, and my policy is not to make agreements on a case without discussing it with law enforcement officers and the victims, because it's not just my case, it's theirs too. Decisions have to be made as to what is most beneficial to the Commonwealth on a case-by-case basis. Are the witnesses available? Is the story consistent? Is the witness changing the story or uncooperative? Have the facts changed? Many factors are taken into account, and I can assure you lack of effort is not one of them.
30 seconds, Mr.
I know how to try cases, over 2,000 a year as an assistant Commonwealth attorney, 1,000 a year, over 1,000 cases while here. I enjoy working with law enforcement, victims, and different agencies. And I'm fortunate to have served as your Commonwealth's attorney, and I ask for your vote in continuing to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bushey?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for coming and thank you for being here. My career, I'm not from Middlesex County, but I was raised in Wisconsin and Arizona. And my parents brought me up and said, you can do whatever you want to do. You can live wherever you want. You can go to whatever church you want to go to. And I took their advice and I did that. I've been living in Middlesex County now for 30 years. I fell in love with this place. I've been in law enforcement for 25 years. 25 years of law enforcement. I started my career back in 1984. I came out of the Marine Corps after 6 years, and I went to the U.S. Marshal Service in Washington, D.C. I was a deputy U.S. Marshal, and I ended up in Richmond, Virginia. From there, my career in law enforcement went to the Richmond Bureau of Police. I worked for Richmond Bureau of Police when it was the #1 murder capital, and I stayed there for 5 years. They had an issue there. I left that business, that career, and moved on into private sector. I went to a company called North American Marketing. I learned from the gentleman that was the owner of that business how to run a business. Because everything you do in law enforcement is a business. You have to learn to lead. You have to learn to budget. And so I came here. That person was actually from Middlesex County that owned the company. And he's the one that showed me this area, and I moved here. After 5 years working with him, he sold the business. And then Sheriff Lou Jones came to me and said, why don't you come on and be a deputy here? So in 1994, I became a deputy with Middlesex County. I worked for 3 sheriffs. I worked my way as a patrol deputy all the way up to investigations. When you talk about murders, prior to going in the Marine Corps, I was the weird kid in school, in high school. When everybody in my school was going to work at Safeway to get a job, I worked for the medical examiner in Phoenix, Arizona, and 39 funeral homes. I actually picked up over 20 bodies a week from the age of 16 until the day I left for the Marine Corps. I saw every type of crime. I worked with every type of detective from Scottsdale, Tempe, Mesa, Phoenix, Glendale, you name it, I saw it. I saw accidents from plane crashes, train crashes, vehicle and pedestrian crashes, you name it, suicides, the whole works. And I think that's what brought me into this career. I started my own business in a commercial dye business in 2003. And in 2011, I was approached by a lot of citizens, some of them have passed away, in this community and asked me to run for sheriff. Doing so, I did, and I won that election. Now, I have a lot of knowledge in law enforcement, 25 years of it. And I've been to the FBI Academy. I've been to the National Sheriff Association Executive Management course. And those courses only select the best of the best across this country. I will continue to do my best and do what I need to do to support this community and protect it. So I will give it to the next person then. Mr. Harrow.
Thank everyone for coming this evening. For those who don't know me, I'm a resident of Hartfield. I'm a farmer, and I am a local businessman. My family's been coming to Middlesex County since the mid-1970s. purchased my home in Hartfield in 2008 after spending nearly 20 years living abroad internationally in Europe and in Asia. During my time overseas, I ran multiple businesses for one company, and to which I had full financial responsibilities. I'm running for this office of the Commissioner of Revenue because it's time for me to serve my community. I'm here tonight to discuss the very important issues that affect everyone in the county, your assessments on real estate, personal property, land use tax, and how the Commissioner of Revenue Office affects these items and others. If elected, I will use my background in business and finance to develop systems to improve the assessment process. These new systems will be used to improve efficiencies in gathering information to you, the taxpayer, as well as the Board of Supervisors to use this data in running the county and planning for the future. In any operation, the key to success is having a staff that is dedicated to their work, dedicated to who they're working for, you the taxpayer, and producing quality product and a high degree of confidentiality, especially in this office. With my background and experience, and with these new systems and ideas that I plan to implement, I know that we'll be able to work with the current team to reach the next level to better serve you. I look forward to answering the questions from you to me this evening, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Eberline.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I'd like to echo the thoughts of all my peers up here and thank the DCA for having us. Thank my opponent, Mr. Hurd, and the rest of the candidates for being here. And most importantly, you, the citizens, for coming out. I think this is a great opportunity for us as a community to come out, talk about some issues, and put some names to faces and get to know the candidates who will be representing you in the next 4 years coming up. My name's David Eberline. I'm running for Commonwealth's attorney. I live in Urbana with my wife and our 2 kids back behind the firehouse. I grew up in Tappahannock and ended up coming to high school in the county here at Christ Church School. I went on to UVA after that, came back to Middlesex and taught at Christ Church for a year before I went to law school at University of Richmond. So I've never strayed real far, always been pretty local. It really boils down to 2 simple things for me for running. The first is community service. I'm fortunate that I've got some really good role models in my parents and my in-laws, and all 4 of them have really impressed upon my wife and I the importance of plowing back into the community. And so this office is an opportunity for me as an attorney to work full-time but also serve the community I'm living in and serve the citizens who vote. The second thing that's very important to me, and it's a little more selfish, so I apologize, is criminal trial work is my passion. I like to be in the courtroom. I like to try cases, and that's why I get up and put on my tie, and that's what excites me. And I know it sounds cheesy, but really it's what I think I'm born to do, so I'm passionate about this work. So I'm running because it's something I love to do, and I think it's a worthwhile opportunity for me going forward. So I'm excited about tonight. I'm glad everybody's here again, and I look forward to the questions you guys have for me. And I'll pass it on to Ms. Burke.
Ms. Burke?
Good evening, and thank you all for being here and the DCA for having us. For those of you that may not know me, I am a lifelong resident of Middlesex, born and raised in Hartfield, now live in Locust Hill. Graduated from Middlesex High School in 2001 and attended the University of Virginia College at Wise, where I graduated in May of 2006. I've always been in service to others through church, through J&W Seafood, which is right up the road. Also in the school systems here, that was a great pleasure and joy for me, being a substitute teacher and going on to be a paraprofessional. Recently, well, my most recent position has been in the Commissioner's office for the past 7 years, and the last 4 I've served as the Chief Deputy Commissioner. And those 4 years have pretty much prepared me to say, that I wanted to run for this position as our current commissioner decided she was no longer going to run. She wanted to retire. My participation in the certification program from Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service and School of Continuing Education through the University of Virginia has been a great resource of information, as well as courses to help prepare for taking on this decision. Some of those courses are personal property, tax exemptions, also the rules and roles and responsibilities of the deputy commissioner as well as the commissioner. I still serve. Currently, I'm holding a position as treasurer of the 4-H extension for the county, and I also serve as a member of the activity committee for Middlesex County Literary Union. So my drive to serve has always been there the last 36 years of my life, and so I want to continue serving the residents of the county.
Now I'm going to say something that I normally do not say or wouldn't say, in what I'm normally opposed to say. I normally tell everybody you've got 3 minutes and don't use them if you don't have to. I have 5 questions tonight. 2 of them I could answer. And you will be able to answer, some of you, those questions that I'm going to ask you. You'll be able to answer that question in 30 seconds. But you got 3 minutes. Now, I know one paragraph needs normally to transition to the next paragraph. And we'll give you broad leeway to transition from the answer of the question to something else. And I think you all will understand me in just a second. I'm going to start with the sheriff. Mr. Bushey, since Mr. Sibley went first, I'm going to ask you this question first. Then, Mr. Sibley, it's coming to you. The question is, how do you feel about using jail inmates on public work products such as litter pickup and keeping our public areas clean? You have 3 minutes to answer that question.
Well, let's see. I think there's a litter control group in the county, and they go ahead and they pay to have the inmates pick up litter throughout the county. I think that's a great thing because we have a lot of people that throw trash out. When I came into office, there was so much trash out, I told the deputies, the first one to catch somebody throwing trash out their window and write them a ticket for littering, I would go ahead and give them a day off if they were convicted. That's how bad it was. Some of them did get it, right?
I think anybody who did it has got their day off.
I think some people have received fines up to $1,000 for dumping. We also put cameras. I put cameras. The county came to me because people were going to our convenience centers and dumping when they're not supposed to. So the county asked me how to resolve that. So we have cameras at the county facilities, and you wouldn't believe how many people we catch dumping their trash and leaving it at the front gate, which causes a problem because we don't have a big maintenance group, and they have to go in and clean it up so they can open the gate so all of us can dump our trash. Inmates. We have a gentleman that takes inmates a couple days a week, and they go out and they cut the county's grass. They cut the airport, they cut around the county, the courthouse, around social services, around the health department, and they love it. The county loves it. It saves you, the taxpayer, a lot of money. These are trustees. We've never had one flee. They get, some counties, they pay them $1 an hour. We don't. We feed them because what they get at the jail is sometimes just a ham sandwich, and they're on a calorie diet. So they love working for us because they'll get a pizza or they'll get, Hardee's and so it works out for us. It kind of looks a little funny sometimes when you go down. Some people are afraid when they see inmates and they see only one deputy with them. But you have to understand, these are trustees. They're getting out within the next 12 months, and they're really generally not going to harm anybody. We have very few problems with that, and that's all I need to say about that. Here you go, Blair.
Ms. Sibley?
Your question was about the inmates working for the county.
I'll give it to you again. How do you feel about using jail inmates on public work projects such as litter pickup and keeping our public areas clean?
I agree with a lot of what the sheriff had to say. Inmates are serving a jail sentence. They're paying a debt to society, so we should be utilizing them to go out here and clean up the roadways and utilize them for any projects we can, as long as we can do it in a safe manner and it's safe for the community. So I agree a lot with what the sheriff has to say, but that's how I feel about it.
This one's going to the Commissioner of Revenues. Candidates, Mr. Farinholt, you spoke first, so I'm going to ask Ms. Burke if she will answer this one. You have 3 minutes. If you disagreed with a Board of Supervisors policy that affected your office, how would you or will you deal with those types of issues?
Okay. Well, firstly, there would have to be extensive research as to. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this better?
Are you on me? It's solid green.
Yes.
Solid green, okay.
Okay. So, firstly, I would like to study the policy and its impact on my department, what we would have to do for that policy, what we would need to do for the Board of Supervisors, but also discuss with them on how they came up with that policy, how they expect us to endorse that policy or give what's needed for the policy.
All right. You will have a very good question in a moment. I mean, and not that these questions are bad at all, but the next one is really going to be taking some, you're going to have to give some thought to. Mr. Farinholt, do you want me to read it again?
I got it.
You got it, okay.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to do is to fully understand what the Board of Supervisors is, understand what the Board of Supervisors is trying to implement. What is the reasoning behind that, and what is the impact going to be on you, the taxpayer, and the community? I think extensive research into how we would go about implementing that, whatever that policy may be, would need to be further and thoroughly investigated, and try to do our best to see if we can maintain that, understand the laws of the state, understand what confidentiality may come into play, and really do what is right for the citizens of the county. That's what will need to be investigated, and if we can find common ground and implement their new policy, we will go ahead and do what they've asked us to do. And if we do not find commonality, then we will basically say we have a conflict here, and we will have to sit down and discuss it further. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Mr. Farinholt. Now, just so you'll all understand now, I have 3 questions left. And they are good questions, really good questions that I want you to give time to I want you to speak to them well, and I think you will. I think you're already prepared for them. But since there's only one question for the Commonwealth Attorney, Mr. Eberline, Mr. Hurd, I'm going to ask that question last. I'm going back to the sheriff's candidates now. At present, right now, in Middlesex County, what issues do you consider to be the most critical for the sheriff's department to address?
That would be the
3 minutes.
That would be the drugs in the community. It's growing and growing, and everywhere I've been talking to people, been in homes, and watched the amount of vehicle traffic in and out of the county. In my own neighborhood, we're watching them walking up and down the street. So I think we need to attack that with every resource and everything that we can attack it with, especially when it comes to traffic enforcement. We need to be out here stopping cars, trying to locate the drugs in our community, and then utilize that information for any investigation that we would need to try to put a a larger dent in the drug problem that we have right now. Now the whole country has a drug problem, but we got one here in Middlesex as well. So I feel like that's the most important topic that we need to be focusing on right now at the sheriff's office, because that's the root to everything. That drives your stolen property cases, it drives your burglary cases, and it drives your violent crime. So if we can fight that on the forefront, it's going to help us when it comes to different types of reports and victims that we receive to the sheriff's office and to the community. It's going to reduce our number of burglaries, our number of thefts, just by fighting the drugs on the front side of things.
Well, I'm going to shock you. Okay? Out of all the Middle Peninsula, the Drug Task Force, we have the lowest drug activity than the other counties. We do have it. People call it in. We investigate it. But you all know it takes time to investigate, and we do a roundup a couple times a year, and we arrest these folks. And pretty much in Middlesex County, it's the same individuals over and over. It does, like Mr. Sibley said, it does go into where people do steal, but we've been on top of that. We've made arrests on that. But that's not the big problem that you don't see every day. The big problem today is what Mr. Sibley said in the beginning. You don't see deputies on the road. Why is that? Mental health. Mental health is the worst thing for a sheriff. Because today, if someone comes in and they're ECO'd, which is emergency custody order, or TDO'd, which is the next level, that officer has to stay with that person. That can take up to 12 to 24 hours that you have a deputy out of this county and off the road. It's a serious problem. The sheriffs have addressed this in the General Assembly. We're working on to get it fixed. It takes up all of our manpower. So if you want to see more deputies on the road, we just have to tell the Board of Supervisors. We, as you read today, we're taking over animal control. First of the year. We had to do that because we lost the animal control, Ricky Warden. He's ill. And we've been doing his job for him. And so I proposed to them to get 2 more deputies on the road. Currently on each shift, we have 3 deputies on the road, 2 deputies and a sergeant. When a TDO or ECO comes in, it reduces it down. During the daytime, like Mr. Hurd said, everybody's in court. The only way you could solve all these issues to get people on the road and deputies on the road is probably to double the sheriff's office in size. So we do the best we can for our community, and that's the biggest problem is mental health. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bushey. Now I'm going back to the Commissioner of Revenue, and then we'll go to the Commonwealth Attorney candidates. Mr. Farinholt, I've lost. I'm going back and forth like a pinball. I believe it's your or Mae's.
I'll be glad to go first.
Okay. What experience in financial education do you have that makes you the most qualified for the position of the Commissioner of the Revenue?
Well,
In other words, we want you to talk about yourself.
not a problem. I graduated from VCU with a business degree, and which of course had multiple financial courses as part of that degree. I also spent the last, as I mentioned, 20 years in my international business running multiple different companies, quite large in size, some, if not many of them, larger than the budget of Middlesex County, where I had full financial responsibility, bottom line responsibility, personnel responsibility, and I did that for over 20 years in a very successful manner. I decided to move on from that business and move to Middlesex County, where I started my 3 marine businesses with my brothers here. I am the business brother as part of our little group of companies. I handle full financial responsibilities for our company and companies, and we work together to plan for the future. but of course, John is the one that has to discuss everything with the banks and other financial institutions to move our business forward. So I have 33 plus years of financial responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farinholt. Ms. Burke?
Okay. So my main experience has been on-the-job training in the past 7 years working in the commissioner's office. Also, my courses that I've taken through the certification program to prepare me to help the citizens and residents of the county as far as working with tax exemptions that may be eligible for Virginians, dealing with personal property, the appraisal of real estate property. So all of my training is on-the-job training. A little more extensive in the last couple of years just due to the health issues that have been suffered by our current commissioner. So I've had to take on a more leadership role in the office, learning how to delegate work so that the office is not burnt out, so that we're still able to service the citizens of the county.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Mr. Hurd spoke first, so we'll give this one to Mr. Eberline, and then Mr. Hurd will have the same question. What specific qualifications do you bring to the position that will make you an effective Commonwealth attorney for Middlesex County?
Well, after I graduated from UVA, my first real job was in a tax attorney's office. Now, that has nothing to do with this position, obviously, but I learned pretty quickly that that's not what I wanted to do. And I was rescued by a criminal law firm in Richmond, and they showed me kind of the other side of the law in being in the courtroom and arguing cases. And I quickly developed a passion. I touched on that in the beginning. And so I worked with that firm, working myself through law school at University of Richmond. And then I was fortunate enough, after passing the bar, they gave me the opportunity to be an associate with their firm. And I worked closely with three of some of the top-notch criminal defense attorneys in Richmond. All three of them were prosecutors in Richmond before they were defense attorneys. And so they taught me a valuable lesson about evaluating cases from the other side. And that's something that you need in the courtroom to be able to anticipate what your opponent is going to do. And frankly, that's what excites me about the job, is it's like a chess match. And so I learned very early to look at cases from the lens of a prosecutor. After working there for, 6 or 7 years and being in state and federal courts all over the Commonwealth, my wife and I moved back to Middlesex, and for the past 3 years I've had a law practice in Saluda, right across from the sheriff's office, in fact. So I've spoken to them a lot about what's going on in the community, about what's going on in the courtroom, and about what we could improve upon going forward in the office. I think it's important that the Sheriff's Department and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office are on the same page. I think you need a positive, productive relationship between the two to bring the best cases in the courtroom and to get the best outcomes for the county. So if elected, I will work tirelessly to make sure that we're in lockstep with the Sheriff's Office to make sure we're doing the work ahead of time, before even arrests happen. To make sure everybody's on the same page and we can solve some of the issues before we get to the courtroom, and there aren't surprises when we get there, and there aren't disappointments when they get there. I think my experience is of a quality I would put up against anyone's. I've been all over. I've seen what works. I've seen what doesn't. I've seen what kind of prosecutors are effective. I've seen what kind are not. I've seen different types of police work. I've seen how different judges react to different things, and I've learned to adapt to those situations, and I think that's an invaluable quality that I'll bring to the office if elected.
Thank you, Mr. Eberline. Mr. Hurd, I'm going to repeat the question. What specific qualifications do you bring to the position that will make you an effective Commonwealth attorney for Middlesex County?
Well, I served as an assistant Commonwealth attorney in Danville. I got that job on my own merits. I worked there for about 4.5 years, doing everything from a couple of homicide cases to the misdemeanors of high weeds. So I tried over 2,000 cases a year. I worked closely with law enforcement officers. I worked with the victims. I was chairman of the Public Housing Crime Control Planning Committee to try to stop and prevent crimes in public housing. Here in Middlesex, I have been involved in local community civic groups and causes since I was even in college when I helped start. Well, I didn't help start that one, but I helped start some other organizations, but I became a member of the JCs back when I was even in college and would come home on, for Easter Festival and help with them on some of their events. It's important to know your local community. I'm the candidate here who's actually tried a felony case in our circuit court, the only one here who's done that. I'm the only candidate who's been an assistant Commonwealth attorney or a Commonwealth attorney and who's even prosecuted a single case. There's a lot of differences, folks, between a defense attorney and a prosecuting attorney, and I have been both for 30 years. I've had 13 years of experience in private practice, 17 years of experience as a prosecutor. So I do know what works and what doesn't. And I know our local judges. I've been president, judges, attorneys, probation officers, because I try cases right here. I have also tried cases throughout a lot of areas of Virginia when I was in private practice. I've served as a substitute Commonwealth attorney in other jurisdictions. This is not a chess match. These are real people's lives. You have to know how to deal with victims. You have to have empathy. I've strengthened our victim witness program. I've established a SART team, a sexual assault response team, in regard to protocols with social services, the sheriff's office, hospitals, and my office in regard to protocols for sexual assault cases. So I established a multidisciplinary team as well in regard to staffing sexual assault cases. I've been to over 70 days total of training in all sorts of different areas, all sorts of things that a private attorney does not experience. We've had lots of successes. I have shown I can work with others and play well with others. That's shown well by the successes we have had, and that's what I have to say.
Well, don't worry. I'm going to give you a few more minutes before this is over with, because we're going to wrap it up now. And Ms. Burke, I'm going to start with you. You have 3 minutes now to say almost anything that you want to say that I won't object to.
Okay.
And what we're going to do, I'm just going to bring it right on down instead of skipping all over, okay? Ms. Burke?
Okay. So basically, I'm seeking to become Commissioner of Revenue based on my desire to serve the community that I grew up in, to have an active role with the community that has shaped me into the person I've become today. Working in the Commissioner's office for close to 8 years now, I have a first-hand knowledge of the vast responsibilities that are required of the Commissioner of Revenue. It's not a position to be taken lightly. I've learned you have to be diligent, respectful, courteous, and have a sense of humor, sometimes to deal with interactions with the taxpayers. Whether they live in the county, just visit, come here part-time, everyone needs to be treated fairly and the same. It's important for the residents to trust that their confidential information and records are handled appropriately and also with integrity. And it's essential for the work to be completed accurately and also in accordance with state and county regulations. The residents of this county deserve a commissioner's office that maintains a high level of integrity, competence, and professionalism, and I am ready and willing to work for the community.
Once again, thanks for everybody for coming out. It was fun, although a light load as far as questions, but that's okay. I'm not much of a politician. I don't like talking about myself all that much anyway. But what I am confident in is my abilities as a trial attorney. And that's what this county needs in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, is somebody who's willing to try cases, okay, to take juries and involve the community in the decisions in the courtroom, and to make sure they bring in an efficient prosecution through the court system. If elected, I'll aim to do that. I'll improve communication and relationships with the Sheriff's Department. I'll aim to be a leader in the community, because I think it's incumbent upon all constitutional officers not to just show up every 4 years when it's election year. I think you should be available to the public. I think you should be involved. And part of that starts, at least in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, in reaching out to different parts of the community, up and down the county, as well as getting involved with the school systems and reaching out to the kids. Talk to them about the position, about our government, about the legal system, about why they want to avoid it. Hopefully we can get ahead of some of these things before they end up in the system. And lastly, I think each case needs to be evaluated on its own merits. One of the things I've seen in traveling around is some Commonwealth attorneys can get a little stale in the job. They've been in the job for a long time. They start to rubber stamp things. There's a standard outcome, whether it's a deal or suspended time, that comes through on every case. What I would aim to do is approach it similarly to the way I do now as a defense attorney. Each case gets its own attention, and I will evaluate each case individually and give it the attention it needs, and I would serve you with enthusiasm and excitement, if nothing else. And so I ask for your vote November 5th, and I thank you all for coming tonight.
Once again, thank you all for coming this evening. I believe that I am uniquely qualified for the Commissioner of Revenue's office. My business background, financial background, the areas of assessment, both on the real estate side, personal property side, I'm very familiar with, and the procedures and policies that need to be taken into account. One thing that I will do will bring new approach, new ideas, a change in the way that we have approached these factors in the past. It's very important to bring technology into the mix, use a data-driven operation to provide the resources that you need to assess your property. If you're looking at a purchase of a piece of property for your own personal use or from a business perspective. It's also important that we provide the data needed to the Board of Supervisors so that they can plan their budgeting properly. Sometimes that information is, on a forward-looking perspective, going to be a good outcome for them to be able to run the county properly. Sometimes you'll have to give them some bad news that a trend is going in this way, and they will have to make the appropriate changes. So I think it's very important that we become a data-driven Commissioner of Revenue office, open, very truthful, and get things to you, the taxpayer, in a timely manner, as well as the Board of Supervisors. And I look forward in doing that job for you and the Board of Supervisors. Thank you very much.
I'm working on my 8th year being your sheriff. And the first year that I came in, we had to rebuild the office. There was no policy, procedures. There was evidence everywhere. And we had to create a fundamental system to make and ensure that cases were being brought before the court and that evidence was secured in a timely manner. That was the first year, and we had a lot of lawsuits that I inherited. And it was a rough time. It was a rough time for the county. There was, I was personally sued because of the last administration for over, I'm on a gag order, I can't tell you really the exact number, but it was a lot of money, okay? And so we went ahead and we created a new system. We brought the sheriff's office up to new standards. Every time we are audited, the auditors from the state said, finally, Middlesex is getting it. That was actually what the auditors said. So then when I brought before new deputies, I said, you need to give something back to this community. I said, inspire me. We have good deputies here. We had one deputy that came forward with a program that you all are familiar with called Virginia Rules, where it takes our children. We take 50 children each year, and we teach them juvenile law. That program has been successful. The people in this community, the business leaders, they give now $10,000 to us for that program. We also started another program because you, the public, you don't know what I do every day. Most of you don't. When I probably shocked you when you said mental health, because you don't realize that's our biggest issue. The sheriff is here to protect and serve each and every one of you. My job is to get everyone trained. We have 4 detectives right now. We have 2 that do the regular crimes. We have 1 that specializes protecting your children on the internet. And he's also sworn federally. Why did I have him sworn federally? Because I know the federal system, and they're paying for half his salary and give him a car, so you don't have to pay for it. I know what I'm doing. I know how to handle this. We also have brought in the Citizens Academy, which I mentioned, and we have Shop and Dine with a Cop. Have you ever heard that? That's where we take these kids that they come from families, they don't have money for Christmas. We work with the school system, and we take them and give them a meal, and they go to Burlington Coat Factory. We had a child last year in this county that had never been to a restaurant. That's Middlesex County. There's some kids here that have never been to a restaurant and didn't know how to behave, and our deputies and the school administration helped. We work close with our school system. You see in the news, we've helped increase security for our children. My job is to protect our children. They're next. Where we're going to go forward, we're going to go next. Next, if you elect me, we're going to start working on elderly care. There's an issue in that in this community. So there's a lot of things that you guys don't know. For example,
Time, Dave.
I brought $1 million into this county, tax-free. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. Mr. Hurd.
I again want to thank all of you for being here tonight. And I said earlier that this is a time-consuming job, and you can probably tell that by seeing that I still need a haircut. I haven't done that yet. And I haven't been out to see some of you as much as I would like during this election cycle because, frankly, my first priority has to be the cases. And we have a murder case at the end of this month, and a lot of other things we're dealing with right now. As I've said before, being a Commonwealth attorney and a defense attorney are 2 different things. I have been trained as a prosecutor. I have been a prosecutor. I'm living my life as a prosecutor for you, the citizens. It's not just an ambition, it's something I actually do. I was a trial attorney, and I am still a trial attorney. Actually, when I was in private practice, as I was ending my private practice, I was voted by the readers of Pleasant Living magazine as their best attorney 2008. I don't get a big head for that because it was one of the prior years my wife got the same honor. So, but it just goes to show you I built a name and reputation around here, and I still have, and I work towards that. I'm very proud of my reputation, which is for working hard for people. I've worked as president of the Lions Club, president of the Ruritan Club, vice president of hospice, vice president of the public library. I'm with local probation and parole, vice chairman of ASAP right now. I don't know how much enthusiastic you can get. As far as dedication, when we had a murder earlier this year, I gave up my vacation with my family going to Florida that we had planned for. They went, I didn't. And that's the way it is. That's the way it has to be. And that's the way it's going to continue with me as your Commonwealth attorney, is that commitment, that dedication. Oh, one more thing, a couple more things maybe. Appeals are difficult. I've had 45 of those as Commonwealth attorney, and we've only had 3 cases that were even granted an appeal. Only 1 came back for resentencing because the judge overestimated how much time the person was to get by 1 month. And, oh, okay, thank you. Okay. And 2 cases went forward that one of them I needed it to go forward, so the law was clear on it, and we made really good law with that appeal. And another case also was granted appeal. On both of those, the cases, of course, were not overturned. And then there's the other 42 that, of course, were no problem whatsoever. I've had over 43 jury trials in my career, and 15 of them here. So that speaks for willingness to try cases. I've gotten 2 life sentences out of jury trials here on sex offenders, 110 years on another for a sex offender. So again, dedication and experience count. And I appreciate your confidence, and as I haven't in the past 12 years, I still will not let you down. Thank you.
Again, everybody's told y'all thank you for coming out, so I'm going to reiterate that one more time. Growing up here in Middlesex County, I've been here most all my life, and this has a little different meaning to me. This is a job interview for the lead law enforcement officer in the county, but this is more of a job interview for me to protect my own. This is my county, this is my family, and this is my community. And I've worked really hard for you all for years, even though you didn't see me. I was back behind and working the investigations. I'm here to fight for each and every one of you every day. We have serious unsolved cases in this county. We've got unsolved murders, unsolved missing persons, and a variety of other unsolved cases. Law enforcement is always going to be my main primary focus when it comes to the sheriff's office. Drugs are a foundation, I can't say that enough, for the crimes that are committed in the community, and they need to be fought on a daily basis through traffic enforcement, other investigative means, but I'm confident we can make a major impact. Equipment in Middlesex County is lacking when it comes to our surrounding jurisdictions, and these guys that are out here working on the road deserve this equipment. We don't have Narcan. We don't have tasers. Narcan is used for drug overdose. It's also utilized to protect officers when they're dealing with drug investigations for their safety. We don't have tasers. We don't have mobile data terminals in the cars yet. That's where the officer can sit there and run a driver's license, check for wanted persons inside the vehicle. They can also they can do the reports right from your driveway. It's almost 2020, and here we are. This equipment is already being utilized in both Matthews and Lancaster counties, and it makes the office a lot more effective and productive. There are grants available, and I plan on establishing a sheriff's office auxiliary similar to what we have at our local fire departments and rescue that will aid and assist us in getting equipment. The last thing I want to be is a burden on the taxpayers by requesting money from the county to pay for such equipment to get us caught up unless all other avenues have been exhausted. In addition, I'd like to see Middlesex eventually get our canine back. We used to have a canine officer here before, and we had a drug dog. I would like to see that, and eventually in our future, the body cameras. That will help keep everybody on the same page. It keeps the level of service up, and it gives us the level of service that Middlesex County residents deserve. I feel like personally it's time for a change. There's a lot of talk, but I want to see some more action. And I'm asking for your vote on November 5th, and I'll be honored to be your next sheriff of Middlesex County. Excuse me. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you to the DCA. Y'all been great. You always keep us laughing, Mr. Harrow. And everybody be safe on your way home. Everybody have a good night.
Let me say this. I do want to apologize for one thing. I always do try to keep this very professional. And I know I called many of you tonight, probably all of you at least once by your first name. I went to high school with some of them. I'm related to some of them. I coached some of them. I know their fathers. It's just a habit. And so anyway, I don't think it made any difference. Now, one other thing. These are the candidates that are running for the offices of which we know they're running for. There's another one sitting back here who's running for the Treasury of Middlesex County, Kathy Thrift. We're getting out of here a little early tonight, so she has no opposition. we'll grab her and talk to her, and you can grab these and talk to them too. Thank you again, DCA, and thank you, candidates, for your willingness to serve Middlesex County.